Gary Neville might be the best right back England has produced in 30 years, and yet somehow nobody remembers him that way. Today he's remembered as the pundit, the bloke Jamie Carragher takes the mick out of, and for a lot of younger fans he was just an average footballer. Yet this average footballer played over 600 games for Manchester United, won 8 Premier League titles, 2 Champions League titles, played 85 times for England, and made the PFA Team of the Year 6 times. So how did one of the best right backs of his generation be remembered as bang average? Gary Neville has been overlooked his entire career, because when the famous class of '92 arrived at Man United, Neville wasn't exactly the type of player to become a legend. Ryan Giggs was terrifying defenders, David Beckham had a wand of a right foot, Paul Scholes was doing things that no man should be doing with a football, and Gary Neville, well, was just Gary Neville. He wasn't particularly quick, he wasn't really silky with the ball, and compared to his peers, he was nowhere near the best. Gary Neville had to survive in this Manchester United team season after season. But in 1995, Sir Alex did something that was unprecedented at the time. He cleared out all of United's experienced players and built the team around the class of '92. And everyone at the time, I don't know because I wasn't alive, was saying that this was a stupid idea. The famous quote is, "You never win anything with kids." Except Man United won the league, and at 21 years of age, Gary Neville had become the first choice right back. Young players get into big teams all the time and then disappear off the face of the earth, and they always get remembered for that little spell of where they looked class. Except Gary Neville didn't disappear. Man United kept changing, but Gary Neville was ever present. Sir Alex rebuilt Manchester United over and over and over again. Players left, players joined, superstars left and superstars joined. United moved from Cantona to Dwight York and Andy Cole, to then Ruud van Nistelrooy, to then Wayne Rooney and Cristiano Ronaldo. Different teams in different eras with different challenges, yet they still had the exact same dependable, Mr. Reliable right back. And you've really got to ask the question, if Gary Neville really was bang average, why did Sir Alex Ferguson insist on picking him every game? Sir Alex famously was not a sentimental manager. He's moved players on that were far more talented than him for less. David Beckham left, Roy Keane left, Ruud van Nistelrooy left. Nobody was staying at Manchester United because Sir Alex liked you. If he believed you were holding the team back, you were going. It didn't matter whether you were the best player in the world. But yet Gary Neville kept turning up. League title after league title, European nights. And by 1999, he wasn't just some kid filling in at right back anymore. He started the Champions League final. He was part of the team that won the treble. And I think the most important bit that gets overlooked every time is Gary Neville knew his limitations, and Sir Alex knew exactly what his limitations were also. And the reason why Neville lasted so long is because he knew what he could do, and he could do well, and he knew what he couldn't do. Gary Neville was no superstar by his own admission, yet Gary Neville became so valued at United because he was always Mr. Dependable, Mr. Reliable at right back. And this is where Gary Neville becomes difficult to appreciate 20 years later, because being reliable doesn't look good on YouTube compilations, let's be honest. Gary Neville knew what his job was in the team, and he did it week on week. He didn't need 15 touches when 2 were can pass. He didn't try to run down the pitch like Ronaldo. He just did his job at what he does. And his partnership with David Beckham is probably the best example. People remember Beckham whipping it in the box. They remember his free kicks, his haircuts, his controversy. But nobody remembers Gary Neville making the runs to support this. And a lot of the times when you watch David Beckham compilations, watch it after this video, you'll see Gary Neville making an overlapping run. And to me, it perfectly summarises Neville's career as a whole. Someone else usually gets the highlight for his good work. Luckily, there is another good way to judge him. Whenever someone argues how good Gary Neville is, they talk about trophies. 8 Premier League titles, 2 Champions Leagues, treble winner. And obviously, that's a ridiculous amount to win in a career. Most players would dream of that. But it doesn't prove that you're a brilliant player. John O'Shea, for example, wasn't the greatest player, yet he got 5 Premier League titles. Ryan Bertrand's, for God's sakes, got a Champions League medal. And as much as I love my boy Ryan Brewster, he's got a Champions League medal also. The point I'm trying to get is being surrounded by world-class players can make you look a lot better than you are. So if we take out the trophy aspect, Gary Neville was still selected in the PFA Team of the Year 6 times. This is not Sir Alex picking his favourite players. That's other players and journalists in the league going, who's the best right back? Oh yeah, Gary Neville. And it wasn't just some purple patch of a career where he got these nominations. It happened across different stages in his career. Then you've got England. He got 85 caps. And again, England weren't desperately searching for a new right back every few years. If Gary Neville was fit, generally he played. Which is crazy when you compare it to the England nowadays at right back. You've got what? Kyle Walker, Trent, Reece James. We've spent years arguing about right backs recently. And for much of Neville's career, there was never really an argument. And then in 2005, Roy Keane left Manchester United and Gary Neville became the club captain. And this supposedly bang average player was leading Manchester United, the greatest team in England at this point, out every single game. And this is where the story stops being about whether Gary Neville was good or not. You start to ask, how good was he really? Because once you look at his career, average just sounds ridiculous to say. But one of the best right backs in the world is a much bigger claim to make. Look, Gary Neville was not Cafu, he wasn't Zanetti, he wasn't a freak of nature that dominated the right hand side of them. And if you made the list of naturally gifted right backs, Gary Neville wouldn't be anywhere near that list. But being worse than Cafu doesn't make you average. It's like saying Wayne Rooney was average because he was up against Cristiano Ronaldo. The better question to ask is, was Gary Neville an elite right back in his era? And I think when you look at his career as an overall, you can't argue no. He was starting for one of the best clubs in Europe and he did it consistently for years. He was repeatedly recognised domestically as the best in the league. He was England's first choice right back. And Ferguson trusted him that much, he played him over 500 times and made him club captain. And when you look at that, it's hard to argue if England has had any better right backs. Kyle Walker is probably the closest to this argument. What he's done domestically, winning the trophies with City, his athleticism and dependability, you could argue him. Trent Alexander-Arnold could do things with the ball that Gary Neville couldn't even dream about doing. Reece James, at his best, looks like he was built in a lab. But in my opinion, I think Gary Neville was better than all of these players. So why is Gary Neville nowadays recognised as bang average? Usually when a footballer retires, their reputation rises. It's why every decent midfielder in the 2010s looks like Zinedine Zidane. Nostalgia is very, very generous. Yet somehow Gary Neville achieved the complete opposite. The longer he's been retired, the worse people think he was. He played alongside David Beckham, Cristiano Ronaldo, Rooney, Giggs, Scholes, Cantona, the list goes on. Pick basically any great United team and he was the starting right back. And I think a lot of it comes down to the fact he was hated by every other fan. Gary Neville loved Manchester United like a fan. He acted exactly how opposition fans hate. He celebrated like a fan. He argued every decision like a fan. And if Manchester United lost to Liverpool, it was like you personally insulted his family. United supporters absolutely adored him. Every other fan wanted to chuck him in the North Sea. But I think the biggest reason is Gary Neville is now known as the pundit Gary Neville and not the footballer. For a huge percentage of younger fans especially, Gary Neville is known as the bloke on Sky Sports. The one that's arguing with Jamie Carragher on Monday Night Football. His, quite frankly, outrageous opinions, his funny memes. And suddenly a bloke with a career that every footballer would die to have becomes the butt of every joke. And I think this is where people don't realise how good he was, because the entire younger generation knows Gary Neville very, very well. just as a pundit and not the footballer. Because when you look at Gary Neville the footballer, his career was near on perfect. 8 Premier League titles, 2 Champions Leagues, a treble-winning season, captain in Manchester United. But when you add years of comical moments on Sky Sports, Jamie Carragher taking the piss out of him, eventually the pundit and the bloke that's the butt of every single joke overshadows the footballer. Was he one of England's greatest right-backs of the last 30 years? Definitely yes. Is he one of the best right-backs the Premier League's ever seen? In my opinion, he's the best. For 15 years, he was a mainstay in one of United's greatest eras. So how good was prime Gary Neville actually? Really, really good. If you want to know how good Michael Owen was in his prime, check out this video. I make football videos like this every single day, so if you did like it, please like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and I'll see you all later. Peace.